And I would like to start to shortly introduce you, and for the people who don't know you yet, to give a short overview about your curriculum vitae. So you did your undergrad studies in mathematics and in history in Darmstadt, and also in Bordeaux. I assume it was an Erasmus exchange or something similar to that. Then afterwards, you did your PhD in mathematical logic. Following that, you were a research assistant then in Darmstadt. And after that, actually, you progressed to become an assistant professor in mathematics education in Bremen, so in the northern part of Germany. During that time in Bremen, you actually finished your habilitation in mathematics education, not in Germany, but in Austria, in Klagenfurt. And after your short stop in Bremen, you changed your location again and you went to the Technical University in Dortmund, where you became a full professor for mathematics education in 2006, where you are still. From your many accomplishments, we can also see that you actually helped a lot of PhD students, and you have actually 18 completed PhD students, and out of those 18, 4 became professors, 3 became assistant professors, and 3 became lecturers. And right now, currently, you have 10 PhD students and 5 postdocs currently working under your supervision. Those are some impressive numbers, and we will talk more about that in the following minutes. Since 2021, so starting this year, you actually are the director of a German center, or the German Center for Mathematics Teacher Education at the Leibniz Institute for Science and Mathematics Education. So I think you are quite an expert in the field of mathematics education research, and we are very happy that today you are here. You give us the time to ask us a few questions. Maybe for everybody watching, I prepared some questions, and I will ask Susanne to tell us a little bit more about herself, about her research, and after that, then in the end, there's also time for you to ask questions in the chat, and then I will ask Susanne the corresponding questions. So, as we said, for now, I will stop sharing my screen so that you have Susanne in a big window and can see her clearly and have at least a little bit the feeling of a conversation. So, Susanne, after all those years, I would like to go back to the beginning a little bit and would like to ask you, what did motivate you in the beginning to become a mathematics education researcher?
Well, in the beginning, of course, I didn't intend to become a mathematics education researcher. First, I wanted to become a mathematics teacher. And I assume this is true for most of us. I wanted to become a mathematics teacher because during my school biography, I had fantastic teachers. And I had really bad teachers. So I knew teachers can make a difference. Later, I realized that teachers can influence one mathematics classroom. But when working in research and development, I can influence many classrooms at the same time. So this multiplier effect, that fascinated me and made me decide to stay in the university, stay in pre-service teacher education, and now also invest heavily in in-service teacher education. That's what our new center is about.
So when you say that you want to influence how math is being taught, that also reflects on your research topic, I guess, because I think that also motivates you and gives you, from your perspective, the biggest impact. So could you please shortly describe us your research topic or what your research is about?
Well, I am working in secondary mathematics education, which in Germany means grade 5 to 12. And I'm dedicated my work to developing and investigating learning opportunities for conceptual understanding. which I consider the core of mathematics. So we developed our research agenda in design research with a focus on in-depth learning processes, not just superficial procedural learning processes. We did that for quite a while, then we realized that language is a key obstacle for many students. So enhancing language has turned out to be crucial for providing this access to conceptual understanding for all students, and all students have become an additional emphasis in my work. So we are really working on increasing equity for everybody. Currently, 10 of my PhD students and postdocs conduct design research and control trials for developing conceptual understanding in these language responsive approaches, for which we can show that it makes a difference. If we design our classrooms in a way that language is also foregrounded, then more students can acquire conceptual understanding. The other people in my group work with me in research on teacher professional development. I don't know if everybody is acquainted with these abbreviation PD, professional development, and in PD research. We have started this new center for in-service teacher education for the whole country because we know it research and journal articles to really influence the classroom practices. For influencing the classroom practices, in-service teacher education is the absolute key. And at least in Germany, it has been done in a very unprofessional way so far, quite arbitrary what's going on in the PD programs. And now we are trying to gather a research base for math related and topic specific professional development. And that's exciting.
Can you please give us a short example of what you just described? You said that language is important for mathematics education or for mathematics lessons. Can you please give us a short example to actually show us what you mean by that?
We are working with 5th graders and also with 10th graders who, when they talk about fractions, they only talk about 3 and 5. Not about 3/5, not about 3/5, not about the part-whole relation, but the only connective they have is and. Here's a 3 and there is a 5. In this way of how do we express the mathematical relationships is a key, as we realized. And we see that many students are not able to articulate and to think about mathematical relationships because they do their world with and then, and that's not enough. So working on these ways of articulating, of explaining meanings for mathematical relationships has become a key for developing their conceptual understanding. Perhaps that's one little example.
Thank you. I think that's quite, it gives us a good insight into your research. So you already mentioned the number of PhD students and of postdocs. That's really impressive. I don't know about the other participants here, how big their working groups are, but 10 PhD students and 5 postdocs, how do you manage that from a professional point of view? How do you manage to keep track of everybody's progress? How do you foster them? And is there actually enough for them to do? I mean, yeah, how do you keep them busy, kind of?
Keeping them busy is very easy because I have so many ideas what to do, but how to keep track of the processes is really another thing. It's true that the group size of my research group is a bit unusual. So usually in Germany, the groups have 5 or 10 people, but not 20. There are these 10 PhD students and 5 postdocs, and also 5 teachers working with us part-time, half-time. So in our design research teams, we try to have always also experienced teachers to really make our work be connected to the practical issues. First of all, my main job is to apply for research funding all the time, because it's not the university who can pay the whole group. But I need it because I have so many ideas what we should develop, what we should investigate. I cannot do that without my wonderful group. Luckily, in Germany, research funding exists. That's not always the same throughout Europe. So we are in the lucky situation that we can find external research money. That's not always the case. How I keep track? You should ask Kerstin, Katja, Dilan, who are in the line here. Sometimes I don't. Usually I try to. And I mainly do it by only appointing excellent people who also work a lot with each other. So I think that the key of my research group is, it's not that every PhD student comes with some topic and does something somewhere in the whole world, but we really try to create synergies of working together, of developing theories together. And then, yeah, the group is fantastic. It's really continuing the work in a very engaged and active and proactive way. I ask all of them to write me a little status report, at least every 4 weeks, just telling me what have I done the last 4 weeks? How did I advance in my topic? What's difficult? What are the obstacles that I need to overcome? And where do you need your help, my help? And this is lovely because these status reports every 4 weeks, they are really the good moment for metacognitive reflection for both of us, and always a good moment for initiating and deepening our conversations about the PhD projects. And of course, the PhD projects need to be within the research program of the whole group to be manageable for me. But I love it, and I love the big group, and I love the discussions they have without me. It's wonderful.
Thank you for the insight, especially the advice to send a status report every 4 weeks. I think that can be very helpful for us as well. And as you said, it triggers some kind of reflection on your own work, and also helps you put it into perspective.
You know, PhD supervision is conceptualized very differently in different countries. It's in Germany, we consider our PhD students as adults. We wouldn't talk about them as students. We talk about them as researchers. But at the same time, we say the PhD supervisor is not a supervisor, but how do you say that? Caretaker.
A coach, maybe? Something like this?
Yeah, coach, caretaker. So it's a bit a different role. And from the point of the topics, I love most the French word. In French, you say encadrer les thésards. So giving a framework for them. And I love this idea. If you have a good framework, then you can work quite good. And this framework also includes a clear research program in our situation. Yes.
So you talked already a little bit about what you love most. So from what you said so far, I think we can certainly say that you love the interaction with the PhD students, that you love teaching overall, that you love to create ideas, to actually foster ideas, to come up with ideas, to exchange those ideas. What else? What else did I forget to mention?
It's the best job in the world. I always feel so privileged to have this lovely job as professor in mathematics education, because I cannot imagine other jobs that are so satisfying for me personally. I love the in-depth work. I love that we are allowed to take time to think deeply. I love the autonomy I have. I mean, can you imagine another job where nearly nobody tells you what to do? It's completely self-determined what topics we are doing. Of course, I have some duties, but the most important decisions are all taken by my own, and I love that. Mm, of course, it's most satisfying when you really see an impact on the PhD students, seeing them grow, an impact on teachers, seeing them changing, deepening their teaching practices. Of course, we love to see impact on students, and also impact on the academic discipline. When other research groups pick up our research approaches, that's really lovely, and it comes into conversation across groups. This is what I really love.
So, but then what's the other side of the coin? What is something that you don't like
Oh,
about your
that's
job?
very easy to say. Conducting exams. Exams is the least loved thing to do. And all this administration, I hate filling forms. And you can imagine that especially the German administration has many forms to fill. But I try to minimize the boring work, try to organize my professional life in a way that perhaps the secretary can do the boring forms and do the exciting work. And this again is a part of this huge autonomy you have as an academic, which is really a privilege compared to many other jobs.
And what do you do outside of work when you don't take exams, or when you don't write research fund, apply for research funds, or when you don't actually take care of your postdocs or your PhD students? How can you relax, and how do you spend a day off or a week off? What would you do when I would tell you, okay, Susanne, right now you don't have to work until the 1st of March?
Well, this would not be a privilege, but a problem, because I love my work. It's not, yeah. You can imagine that what I'm talking about here is not a 38 hours job. Of course not. It's much more. And the academic work also includes a large part of my hobbies. I must say that very clearly. And something like organizing ERME is of course a hobby. We might talk about that later. But of course, also after 60 hours, there's some time left for not doing work. Well, I love to spend time with my family. My boys are now adults. They are 21 and 22. So there was a nice time when they were kids. They really forced me to stop working. I love that. And I miss that a bit, because now they don't do that anymore. Our most important family hobby is really traveling through the world. We have spent 9 weeks in Australia. We have spent 5 weeks in Vietnam, in Korea, in Indonesia, in Namibia, in South Africa. So traveling Brazil and many other countries, traveling is so exciting because you really get to know other cultures, other ways of living. And I found it also so inspiring for the kids to see these different cultures and ways of living. When I have to stay at home, I love dancing. Those of you who have been to an YERME dinner know that that's my most favorite hobbies. There's some are nodding their heads. It's really good. In the pandemic, I bought a rebounder because I felt I need some sports at home, and it's just the little thing you can do in. Love it really much. And what I do not love at all is that we had to learn to go for a walk. I mean,
Yes.
we sometimes went for a walk in earlier times, but now it is so important because you're sitting at home all the time, and this forcing me and my husband to go for a walk, it still feels so senior, you know, but it is definitely important to do.
So you already said a little bit that you had to adapt, of course, like everybody in the last 6 months due to the circumstances around us. What is your biggest takeaway from your perspective? Not necessarily speaking now from a professional perspective, but maybe also so from both sides. As a private person, you said, or you mentioned already, taking walks, which became, I think, a hobby for nearly everybody of us out of necessity.
Do
But
you also
from
feel like grandma when doing that, or is it only my problem? You do? That's good to hear. Okay.
yes, I think so. But also from your professional point of view, maybe both sides a little bit. What is your biggest takeaway from the last 6 months?
I must say the biggest takeaway is becoming aware again that we are so privileged. I mean, we are living in an affluent country with a good health system. They might not be able to organize vaccination, but they will do in future. And we can be very safe here. We are working in a secure job. What a privilege in this time where everybody's losing their jobs. We are working in a highly flexible job, so it was easy to change to go home. Of course, I would love to meet people. It's much more fun than sitting at home. But the fact that we can do it is such a privilege in that time. And I mean, that's one of the things that the international work always produces in myself, getting aware of the luck we have to be born in the right situation in a country, in a social milieu in which living is so easy as ours, and everything else. I could also tell some stories and complain about some little details. Of course I can. I'm annoyed of sitting on my sofa now, but the privilege is the much more dominant feeling, and we need to keep aware of that. So given these privileges that we have, it increases the responsibility we have to contribute to this society. Even if we chose to contribute only to mathematics education, we should contribute. And it takes, again, even in a rich country like Germany, the issue of equity. Even in countries like Germany, where everybody has a health insurance, the way we are infected or not depends on our living circumstances. And it's a huge issue of equity. And those who are so privileged have the responsibility to contribute to make this world a little better. I mean, it sounds a bit pathetic, but that's really what I feel about the situation.
I agree with you. I mean, it does sound, when you would say it in, I would say, normal circumstances, it would sound a little bit cheesy, but I think everybody understands what you are saying and your emotions regarding that, and especially that it is also important to give back, not only to receive when you are in a good position, but to also give back what you received. So I would like to talk a little bit more then about also your other professional life, I would say, about your international activities. You published a lot of articles, a lot of proceedings, but at the same time, you are also part of the editorial board of many journals. You were part of commissions for many positions. You are part of many organizations, helped to organize many events, such as the ERME right now. And you are right now also taking time for us during the YERME. So why are you doing all this volunteering work? What's your motivation behind that?
I mean, yes, indeed, it's important to say that nearly all of these responsibility outside the own university are volunteer jobs. Yeah, you are not paid for being ERME president. No, you spend money. You're nearly not paid for being editor of educational studies. At least it is much less than any minimum wage. In the German university system, it is not even calculated as part of my university workload. It's simply additional work. There's nothing to say about that. However, I always feel that the academic societies and journals, they are not just something additional, but they are at the core of our academic discipline. So it doesn't feel as additional, it really feels as in the center. Whenever we submit a paper in a journal, we must be aware that, of course, there is the publisher who's getting rich by that, but the work is done by volunteers. The editor, the several reviewers that are needed for the review process, they do it as volunteer work. So, of course, each researcher has a duty to write reviews and engage in this work, because the whole system of publishing wouldn't work without the peer review process. So this is the part of the responsibility part, but there is also the part of my personal profit out of all these things. I always feel I can learn so much in these jobs. I mean, let's take the example of the editor of educational studies. I have the privilege to read 50 manuscripts per year, 50. Among them, the most actual and exciting research conducted in the world. So that's lovely. It's lovely to get access to that and to being forced to read it. Communicating with authors and with reviewers, that always adds to my own understanding of what good mathematics education research is and what it is about. So with every paper handled there, I widen my personal experience. The same applies, for example, for this job of being the involved in the processes of the external funding in the German Research Council. You can accumulate so much experience when you are in these jobs. You learn so much about how to write a research proposal when you do all these reviews and when you see many papers. And you can influence what counts as good research. That's again the impact part that I love so much, having impact. So that's what I love to do.
So you already mentioned that you don't get paid as a ERME president. Does Carl also know that as an ex-candidate?
Oh, Carl has asked me 1,000 questions, but he has not asked for a salary. I can confirm.
But from your point of view, what did motivate you then to become a president? I mean, you said that it's very insightful that you get to see a wide range of activities, also of research, but can't you do that as well as a normal participant at ERME, or as a just as a board member? Does it have to be a president? So what is your motivation behind the president? Or what led you to become a president? Let's put it like that.
It does not have to be the president, but it's much fun to be the president. I mean, it's just, you can influence things. When I was 14, I first became, how do you say that, the speaker of the Students' Council.
I know, yeah, I know what you mean. Mm-hmm.
And by that age, I realized that this is the very best way to learn about institutions and to learn about the decisions taken in an institution and the values negotiated in an institution when you engage in trying to shape the institution in the councils or wherever. So yeah, well, I try to do that also for ERME. It's also a story about giving back and giving back what I gained from the society. You know, I was a participant of Yes #1 in Klagenfurt, 2001. There I met so many lovely international people. By that time, I was used to go to international conferences as a mathematician, but not yet as a mathematics educator. And I was impressed about this different atmosphere. In Germany, by that time, conferences were very hierarchical. There were these big professors, mainly men, very, very distant from us, the very small PhD students and postdocs. And I felt that the atmosphere on these international conferences were completely different. The hierarchies are much more flat. I was sitting with these big names like Tommy Dreyfus, and he acted as a normal person, not as a god, you know? And this is much more the atmosphere which I found productive for doing good research, and I love that. So I immediately felt that ERME is my community. In 2005, I first acted as a junior co-leader in a group. That was the first conferences where they decided to have always a fifth person in the working group, the leader group, to have a young researcher in there. So again, it was an amazing experience, as you can learn so much when you change the sides from participants to active co-leader. And I was particularly expressed about the way the communication is initiated there. And becoming a junior co-leader started this typical ERME career. So 4 ERMEs in a row, I was co-leading and then leading working groups. Then I was a member of the IPC, the International Program Committee. Then from 2011 on, it's now 10 years that I have been on the ERME board. And in the moment I wanted to resign, I became vice president, and then I became president. And it's only this week that I will stop being on the ERME board. In each of these roles, I felt a bit more at home in the community. And for me, it's really meeting friends, and that's lovely. And again, seeing mathematics education research from different perspectives is just very insightful. It's still like, as a 14-year-old student council representative, you learn to understand the institution much better when you actively take part in the decisions about what to push, what to prioritize, and that's really lovely. The strategic decisions we take there might not be seen, but they are there. So how we ask things like, how can we strengthen the 3 C's? You all know, I hope, the famous 3 C's: communication, collaboration, cooperation. And it was just one little idea in the ERME board that someone said, we need some conferences between the ERMEs. So we invented the ERME topic groups, and the ERME topic groups have already become a very important part of the ERME life. How to strengthen the visibility of European research in the world? Well, we installed a new series, a new book series. And we decided not to go to Springer, because Springer has become the monopolist person that really, company that really takes everything over. So do we want to keep publishers outside Springer? Then we need to actively push that. Things like that are these strategic decisions that we are taking. We also strengthened our visibility of European research in the world by inviting the world to us. I mean, are you aware that at the last 2 ERMEs, more than 20% of the participants came from out of Europe? It's lovely to see. And they all come back, because ERME is just simply the most lovely conference that we have in the world.
Thank you for those nice words and for the nice insight. I had a short look in the chat, and there's a question regarding exactly what I wanted to ask next as well. You talked already right now a little bit about the insights and the impact you can have in such a position, but how can you actually, what kind of advice could you give us as for our future career, I would say, for our future career path? And starting with that point, I would like maybe first to ask you, what was most important during your own career pathway? What was deciding moment? Maybe there was one, maybe there wasn't, but maybe what were important factors during your own career? Important aspects, yeah. Steps.
That's a difficult question. I mean, you know, On these ways through the professional life, there are so many random effects, and you cannot always plan everything, but there might be one important pattern. During all these years, I had several moments where people believed in me and gave me responsibility, and I said, oh, how should I do that? And they said, you will. And having these people believing in me helped me to believe in my ability to take these responsibilities. So I did it. And whatever I get there, whatever I chose to take was optimized by this idea of how can I increase the impact of what we are doing. What might be typical for my life is that I always have the ambition that what task ever I take, I want to do it well. And I don't want to stop too early in accomplishing it. At the same time, given that all these random effects are taking place, it seems important to define your own goals and to pursue these goals in the long run. So, of course, you are also offered a lot of responsibilities which do not contribute to these goals. And it might have been one of the most difficult things to learn for me to say also, no, I cannot do that. For example, no, I am not the person who will conduct the large-scale assessments in Germany. That's not interesting for my work. I'm happy that somebody else does, but it does not contribute to my agenda. So I will not do that. I will try to do the things that contribute to my agenda.
I also want to ask you what kind of advice you could give to us young researchers, but maybe I would put that as a last question, because I think that would maybe be maybe one of the most important for us. So before we do that, I prepared some small questions, and I would like to, before we start the opening, I would like to ask the other participants. I already saw that some questions are coming in. I prepared 5 short questions what I would like to ask you, and please don't think too much about them. And they're not, I mean, they're not that meaningful, I have to say. But from some podcasts which I follow, they always have the habit of asking five fast questions, and I would like to do something similar.
Okay, you know, Gregor gave me the opportunity to prepare most of what I said today, so think about it in advance. This is the spontaneous part, huh?
Exactly. So the first one would be, which app did you use the most during the last few months?
Oh, that's clear, podcast. I love
Really?
to hear political podcasts, yes.
Okay.
I spend at least 2 hours a day in hearing political podcasts, and whenever I do boring things like cooking or gardening or walking alone, then I hear political podcasts.
Okay. And so which acronym do you encounter in your daily work? What's your most famous acronym apart from maybe ERME or YERME? You already mentioned PD, professional development. What else?
Okay, let's take that. Thank you for the help. ESM. I mean, that's another part where I invest a lot. But yeah, there are many acronyms. But I love the answer PD. That's good.
So, in your opinion, what would be the hot topic in 10 years from now?
I hope that topic-specific PD research will become much more famous all over the world, because for the moment, PD research is often so unspecific. We have some general pattern and pedagogical issues of how to organize, but we do not know enough about how a teacher learns to let's say, differentiate in fraction classrooms. So topic-specific PD research is my wish to become a hot topic.
Okay. And fourth question, even or odd numbers?
For what?
In general.
In general. I mean, my favorite number is the 2, so let's take the even numbers.
Okay. And then last but not least, written, spoken, or sign language?
I love to speak, but I also love to write. That might be one of my privileges. Loving to write is a good thing for an academic career.
All right. Thank you very much, Susanne. Maybe as a last question, from my side at least, and before I would like to have a look into the chat for regarding the question of the other participants. By the way, you are more than welcome to ask something. As I said, I will then ask Susanne about that. So which advice would you give us as young researchers for the future? You already mentioned that it's important to give back, to actually engage, and I would like also to welcome everybody, participants right now, to do that already. What else? What advice can you give us?
Well, I must say, when you asked me for the most important advice I received, I must say it was not advice. It was something that was more chosen by us. I have learned a lot from models, from senior people who impressed me in a certain aspect, in a certain way they deal with people, in certain topic-specific decisions they have done, and I try to learn from these models. Teachers who impressed me with a particular instructional approach. If there is one single advice that had really shaped my life, it's find your own research profile. People need to know what you stand for, but at the same time, do not be too specialized. Try to connect different research approaches and areas. So just look around. There are many different ways of being an excellent researcher, and try to find what you like and try to learn from this person. That's my main advice, perhaps.
Thank you very much from my side. It was really a pleasure to talk with you and to be able to ask you some questions. And now I'm having a look into the chat, and I'm gonna ask the question from Clara. I felt this difference between the attitude of a great mathematician and a great didactician too. I mean, an expert in the area of didactics of mathematics education. What's the reason, in your opinion, the reason behind such a feeling? You mentioned that you went to a conference in mathematics and you went to a conference in mathematics education. There was a different feeling there.
I mean, when I finalized my master's studies, I still felt I didn't know how mathematics is made. And I made my PhD in mathematics because I really wanted to learn how mathematics is fabricated. And I loved doing that, but I always had a bit of problem of sense making. Might have also been a challenge of the pure mathematics I was working in. It was not so clear for me how this would contribute to making a better world. So didactics was much more easy for me to justify why I would spend my life and all in that. Mathematicians are also very communicative. I was living in a research group which communicated very much, but it's much more difficult to communicate with people who are a bit more distant to your own research. So communication in mathematics is with the very near colleagues and very few with others, whereas in didactics, we can communicate across different research schools, across different areas. That might be a major difference.
Thank you. Lucy asked as well a question: what kind of networks have proved helpful as a woman in mathematics, and how have you dealt with encounters with systematic sexism in your career? I think that's a question which is right now very prominent and which I'm having a look right now. I'm really surprised to see that many women. I'm happy about that. To see that many women right now participating. So what can you say to that?
I think I never experienced open sexism, but of course, as a woman, you, at least in the German society, which is still very, very paternalistic, you have to show that you should be taken for serious with more power than men before being accepted as a real person next to others. The major challenge I see in most young women is self-consciousness, the belief in I can do it. And that's when I accompany young researchers, this is the key. Do I trust in myself and do I feel I can do it? Because if not, you will not do it. So the major challenges for women might lie in ourselves, not so much in the others. A second challenge is when you get kids. At least in Germany, when you have a baby on your arm, you're not taken for serious anymore, and you have to fight to get back the acceptance as an adult person, even if you have a baby. But it's feasible, and I can only encourage people, when you want to have a family and when you want to have an interesting job, the academic world is the ideal place.
Thank you very much for those insights and for those nice comments. I don't see any more questions. If there's anything else you want to ask, now is a possibility to ask the still current ERME president until I think 6 o'clock today, right? And then the elections are actually so. And to ask a person, Susanne, with so much international experience, with so much experience all in all. I can only say from my side, there is right now another question. Do we have experience with mathematics teachers becoming researcher in mathematics education? How do you guide them? I think so. Mathematics teachers becoming then researchers.
Yes, we have that in Germany. And we try to push that because we are convinced that it is very good for the academic discipline if there are people, not everybody, but some of the people really have a strong practical background. In Germany, we have the opportunity to have teachers part-time in the universities. Some stay in the teacher role while going to the universities, others really shift the role into the researchers. And I'm always proud if I have infected some of them in my love for investigating processes in depth. So if teachers get infected by this curiosity, then they become researchers after that.
Okay, then thank you very much from my side for your time, for your energy, for all the nice ideas you put out here, you shared with us. I can only talk for myself, but I also saw many comments that that the people, the participants, are very thankful. That it was very insightful. All your comments, all your ideas. For me, honestly, from my personal side, what stuck with me was what you said. I want to do it well. When you do work, I want to do it well. One thing, and the second thing, that we should always give back when we are in a good position, when we have the possibility to connect with each other and then to work towards a common goal, to collaborate and to help. And what also
one more thing.
Yes, sure, of course.
I have been in many situations where we had to take decisions about whom to ask for a certain thing, for a certain responsibility, whom to ask for becoming group leader, whom to ask for organizing something, etc. And I learned that, of course, academic excellence is important. Without academic excellence, you cannot do a career. But when these kind of decisions are taken, we look for people who are proactive and who are highly reliable. Reliability and being proactive is really important, because only then you get these opportunities of getting some responsibility for anything. And I have colleagues who are excellent, deep researchers and thinkers. If they are not reliable, they will not get the next responsibility. And if you don't have own ideas what to do, then you will not get the next responsibility. Andrea and Dorota are the best examples for the moment. These two are the most active ERME board members I have for the moment. They have ideas. They do not only react on things coming from outside, but they push ideas. And once they have decided they want it, they do it. And that's exactly what this community needs. So they have influenced a lot in the last years, and they continue to do, Dorota will continue to do, simply because when they have an idea, they pursue it, and they do it with consequence and reliability. And that's the way they got influence in this community. And that's why you are all sitting here, because they are working hard for realizing their ideas. So if I have only one advice to give, how you can influence the academic discipline, do it like Andrea and Dorota. It's lovely. Thanks for your work.
I think those were nice, befitting moments to conclude the interview. Thank you from my side. Thank you for your time. And yes, thank you overall.